check out.
This one's mine.
Mine's in here.
I have mine.
Unless I just gave you mine. I might have given you mine. I gave you mine.
It's all yours.
You gave me that.
Pardon? Just like I would have given it.
Okay, we are on air. So we are starting out tonight. Call this work session to order. With a conversation with our municipal court judge. So Kimberly and Bonnie, you want to come up?
Good evening.
Welcome.
It's been a while since I've been here, and I'm still not sure there's a lot more to update, which, I mean, no news is probably good news in the court.
Yes.
We did finally work through all of the ups and downs and contracts and back and forths with the attendance court program. And so the first session is scheduled for October. That's usually one that's on the calendar, but we don't necessarily end up needing it. And that was even from before, because there just aren't that many kids who've had attendance issues that early in the year, but it's on there. The school district last school year hired somebody just to deal with the attendance court process. So the school district has changed up their process entirely. Before anyone can come to court, the schools actually have to have the students' file reviewed by somebody at the district. So even though we have the entire district now coming in, I don't know that the numbers are going to go up. And in fact, the hope would be that they go down, because there are many, many more interventions along the way before the kids get here.
Good.
So ideally, I will only see those who every intervention the school district has tried has simply failed for some reason. But I do think there'll be some growing pains as the schools realize they can't just send folks to attendance court anymore, and that the district is really going to review things. I know there was some pushback the end of last year. We tried to do a couple of sessions just to kind of run the process, and the district found that schools were saying, well, if we have to do all that, we're not going to bother. Because it's a pack. I mean, it's a different process for them. It might have just been that it was the end of the year. But I think going to be a wait and see. I don't think we're going to get to 2 sessions. I think we'll still be at 1 session a month. And hopefully it's going to be a lot more effective for families. Any questions about attendance court?
Did you, recently, the chief and I and several other people had a meeting with the new folks that are taking over the diversion program.
Taking over what?
What
Sorry, what program?
Diversion
Program.
Oh,
And we suggested that they get a meeting with you too, because there's, data that shows that kids missing a lot of school tends to then turn into worse things.
right.
And this organization is doing more than just the diversion stuff, like after a crime has been committed. They're doing more work with families before, so it kind of would be really perfect for you to be connected to them. They haven't reached out yet?
No.
So the county was the one, and I'm trying to remember the name of the organization, but I'm failing. They took over the contract that Parrot Creek had.
Yeah, no.
I just can't think of the organization. But if they don't reach out in the next whatever week, drop me a line and I'll connect you.
Okay. I will do that. And that's for diversion for like first-time juvenile offenders? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the school district has put together a class of sorts. It's not ideal as far as what anybody was looking for. Right now, it's through the county, and it's sort of here are all the classes we offer. So I think it's a 3-hour class, one-time class, giving them kind of a feel for where they could get more support. So it's
Parents or the students?
parents?
The parents.
The parents. So there's some, at least, support there for them. Get them out to a class, show them where they can get some help. The district has talked about putting together a class, actually having a curriculum, a class that's specific to the attendance issues, but they haven't gotten that yet. But if we're dealing with young offenders, any class that parents can get into and get some extra support and some guidance and some tools, and since it's through the county, we can send anybody we need to. So that might be an option for diversion families as well. So I will let you know if I don't hear
Okay.
about that soon. The other thing I had on my list was I had contacted Anne about the legislation that was looking to eliminate license suspensions for non-payment of fines. The session ended. They didn't make any decisions on it, so it's not eminent in any way. It was just something I thought you should know about because it would obviously affect the court process significantly and possibly affect the amount of cases that get paid on, really. I think it's a global problem to a very narrow problem, or global solution to a very narrow problem. There are simply courts out there that drag people in on warrants because they haven't paid their fines. And the legislature or whoever proposed the bill said, well, we can't be doing that. It's not something that we do. In fact, we tend to bend over backwards with payment plans and pulling things back from collections to start the payment plan process over again. So I don't see that it's a problem at all here. One of the cases in the paperwork to the state with the legislation did come out of our court. So of course I went back to Carla and said, tell me about this case. What happened here? Got the ticket, never showed up to court. 4 years later, got a call from an attorney saying, can I get the information on this case? And there it is, as one of those cases where somebody can't get a job and can't transport their kids and can't transport their family because Milwaukie has suspended their license. We've still never had any contact with the individual that was listed. Only person who's called us is an attorney to say, we need all the background information. So I'm sure that it will come up again.
Can you think of a better solution to the?
I mean, we had talked about the amnesty program. We're still working on that to close out cases, to get people their license back if they are now in a position to get it back by making, a smaller payment. I don't know what the solution is to getting folks to pay if they don't have the current ability to pay, other than payment plans. And that's what we already do and try to do is, I tell people every day, set the plan at what you can pay. And I don't care if it's $5 a month. Set the plan at what you can pay so that you don't fail, and then we suspend your license. Because that just causes a whole slew of other issues, collections and fees and whatnot. But now I think the payment plans is probably the best we can do. But it's nothing on the radar at this point until next legislative session when it comes up again. But those were the two that I had on here. And then, like I mentioned, the amnesty program, I think attendance court just sent us spinning, trying to get all these meetings and getting folks lined up. So now I've got the focus back on talking to collections, since they have to help us run the amnesty program, and getting that back on track for after the start of the year.
This is probably really a question for the police chief, but I'll ask you since maybe you would have seen it. Do you ever see tickets issued to pedestrians?
A handful.
A handful. You do? Okay. Well, I'm glad to know you see some.
Yeah.
Because I see some really egregious behavior by pedestrians crossing between the lights on 99E. The lights are only 2 blocks apart. There's sort of further south on 99E, you kind of understand why people don't walk to the light because it could be a quarter mile or a half mile to the light.
Right.
But in downtown Milwaukie, there's no excuse for somebody to not walk to the light and cross between the light. And I've been seeing that a few times this summer. I am worried about that. We're going to see a lot of that when the Kronberg path opens up. We're going to see more of that crossing to the River Roadhouse area. So I'm glad to know they are writing some tickets to pedestrians.
Not a lot,
No.
but a handful of them. Anything else? That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to attendance court and getting that back up and going and seeing how the new process works and how it works for families. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks for doing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have the Milwaukie Housing Affordability Strategy Update with Erin Maxey.
Just for moral support.
We're pretty scary. She probably
I'm
needs it.
here. Good afternoon, Mayor Gamba, City Council, Erin Maxey, Housing and Economic Development Coordinator.
And Layla Mon, the Community Development Director.
We're here today to give you an update on the Milwaukie Housing Affordability Strategy implementation, or MHAS implementation. Just to give you a little background, even though you already know, Council adopted the MHAS in July of 2018. It is a 5-year strategy to address housing affordability in Milwaukie. It has 31 short, mid, and long-term goals that we'll be addressing. The first 6 months, so July to January of 2019, were spent doing a little bit of the pre-planning, coming up with a work plan, seeing what steps we would take to address all of these goals. So officially in January, kind of kicked off the beginning of this implementation. So the update today is going to focus on what's been happening since we last came to you in December of 2018. So last time we came to you, we talked about 2 goals that had already been accomplished or completed. The Metro bond passed. Staff continues to monitor their implementation of that funding. And then, of course, the Housing and Economic Development Coordinator position was hired. Since then, we've completed one additional goal, but it will require monitoring and updating regularly. So that's the development of a database of available properties for developers.
And that was in the context of the MHAS, so it's about housing, but are we also doing that for industrial areas and businesses and stuff? No.
Not at this time.
And is there I know of, what's it called, LoopNet or something?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the best thing there is in terms of somebody searching for an industrial or commercial property in Milwaukie?
There are multiple interfaces. We have a subscription to CoStar. So we do, when we have employers or folks that are interested in space in Milwaukie, we'll run reports for them using CoStar, which is kind of an industry standard for that. So both Erin and I have access to those. So while we actively don't maintain a database per se on our website, we do actively provide that data when requested, and especially we have employers who want to stay here. We just met with someone last week, in fact, and offered that service as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
So now we'll jump into some new things. The first being the construction excise tax. So actually prior to the MHAS adoption, you all passed the construction excise tax, or the CET. It is, as a reminder, a 1% tax on residential and commercial development in the city of Milwaukie. And those funds are to be used for specific things per state law and per the ordinance that was passed. And this is just a little bit of a breakdown. So developer incentives and affordable housing, other type of programs, it could be grant programs to affordable housing agencies as an example, and then some to be used for economic development. Yes.
Go back to that for a second.
Absolutely.
Am I misremembering? I thought on commercial development, it was a minimum of 50% affordable housing. There's a hard line at 50% affordable housing, and 50%
To my
goes to economic
understanding,
development?
yes. And I printed that for you and didn't bring it.
Yeah.
I believe it's 50-50 based on ordinance.
Okay.
So MHAS Goal 1.1 spoke to the construction excise tax. It directs us to create an oversight committee to help develop the criteria for implementation of the funding. We've reached a level at which it makes sense to start distributing that funding to people in the community who are interested and would qualify, so we've got to start with the criteria. So Staff developed an application in English and Spanish and put that out to the community for some community members at large to participate in this oversight group. The application asked for open-ended questions focusing on equity, diversity, the applicant's experience working with marginalized communities, as well as some generic job, income level, do you live in Milwaukie type questions. We had that out at the end of May into June and received 10 completed applications from the community to participate. Staff reviewed and evaluated those applications based on their answers to those open-ended questions. So their experience working with diverse groups, their ability to represent the demographic diversity in Milwaukie, knowledge of housing issues, and so forth. And we selected 4 community members to participate. We also have 3 technical members on the committee. The group will be active for 6 months, and our first meeting is next Monday, September 9th. We will come to you guys about halfway through the process to check in and let you know where we're going and seek feedback from you guys on how that's going, and then plan to come back in early 2020 with program recommendations. So any questions on the CET before I move on?
You're not going to tell us who the 4 people are?
Absolutely,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I have them if you'd like to know, for sure. The 4 community members are Celestina DeMario, who's also on the CPAC committee. Desi Nicodemus, he's a teacher at Lot Whitcomb Elementary School. Sarah Silva, who is retired and lives in Milwaukie, and Sharon Johnson, who is an ESL teacher as well.
Great.
And just so you, since we're talking about them, the technical participants, we have Tom Bond from Umpqua Bank, Bonnie Davis, our finance director, and Jackie Keogh from Proud Ground.
Good.
Okay. So next, we'll talk about the Sparrow property. Let me get my paper. So on June 12th, the city acquired the Sparrow property, which is located on the corner of Southeast Sparrow Street and Southeast 25th Avenue in the Island Station neighborhood. The Sparrow property is a brownfield site purchased from TriMet for the purpose of affordable housing. Staff is currently working with Business Oregon to submit 2 grants for funding for future work at the site. Those are to cover a community-led design process for what might work on that site to be built, as well as a grant to cover some of the technical things. So the development of the PPA, the prospective purchaser agreement, a remedial action plan, as well as a contaminated media management plan, which all deal with the cleanup of the site prior to the development. So staff plans to come back to you guys to discuss the strategy and development goals for that site before moving forward.
So tell me what, on the picture on the right, what are all the little white boxes? They're not buildings, because some of them are along a creek. Some of them, they're not structures.
My guess,
Yeah.
but it's a guess, is that that's where we did when
Soil
we were doing our
testing.
soil testing. Those are our soil testing
Where
sites.
what?
Soil testing sites.
I mean, sorry, everybody's saying. I could not hear any of it.
Soil samples.
Oh, I thought maybe it was geese.
Big geese.
Okay, yeah, that would probably make sense.
No, some of those are in the middle of the road.
It's true, some of them are.
Yeah,
Maybe some of them I apologize, I do not know where those
I still think it's geese.
Well, so the row of them kind of on the north edge that trickles off is related to something we talked about recently with the comp plan goals for natural resources, because that is an unnamed creek, basically, that then goes down under McLaughlin. And so, I mean, that's why I know there are no structures there. That's a
Yeah,
vegetated
nothing's ever
area.
been built on the site. It's
Yeah.
completely vacant. Any questions about Sparrow or moving forward?
You don't have a particular timeline, it sounds like. You're
Not hard timeline as of yet. We're working on finishing up the grants, which will require us to develop a timeline. The remedial action plan has to be completed within 2 years per our agreement with DEQ. So that's the rough estimate there to get a plan for cleanup. All right. So comp plan. So staff is currently working on a scope of work and an implementation plan for the comp plan once it's adopted by council at the end of this year. In July, you guys pinned down the housing policies for the comp plan, and there are a number of MHAS goals that align with those policies and that will be addressed, including those listed here on the slide. So the synthesis stage of the comp plan development's begun, and all of the pinned down policies will be reviewed for consistency and alignment with city goals. And then the entire comp plan will be taken through the public hearing process. There are 2 studies that will help inform future code updates. Those are the cottage cluster and the ADU studies that you guys have heard about recently. So staff will be working to further refine the code recommendations from those studies, taking into consideration what we've heard from you all, from the Planning Commission, as well as the community in regards to those recommendations, and then come back with code recommendations for you guys next year. Those will also go through the public hearing process for more input from community and from you guys. That's all I have on that one. Anything about the comp plan that you want to? Okay. So marketing and promoting programs. So there are a number of MHAS goals that direct the city to connect community members with resources, both nonprofit and government resources, and promote those programs. So pursuant to those goals, staff had already created a number of flyers that we use, as well as developing the housing affordability website, which I'll talk about on the next slide. So staff plans to take all of those flyers and combine them into a resource guide for community members. It would be easier to take to public-facing events such as fairs and pass out, say, at the library versus a bunch of different flyers. And so taking that one-stop shop but making it in a paper form. We also plan to further these promoting and marketing goals through investigating whether a housing resource fair in 2020 would make sense. And what I mean by that is connecting with community partners, nonprofits that would participate and make sure it's something that they would want to participate in, as well as making sure it's something the community would come to. So we'll be doing a little bit of background work before committing to doing it, making sure that it's something that we actually want to do. Also in that piece of things, we are continuing to meet and build relationships with nonprofits in the community, as well as partners at Clackamas County and Metro, just to better understand the work that they're doing, making sure we understand all the programs they have and how we can best support those programs for them to work here in Milwaukie.
Erin, could you just state quickly who the housing resource guide is supposed to serve? Is it, you know, for people who are on the brink of being houseless, or for people who are looking to move here and possibly buy and have a limited income? Or
Absolutely. My initial thought is that it would just have everything. I mean, the audience would be those that don't have access to the internet readily at home, so that they can take it with them and still take their time to look through it and have phone numbers and other ways to connect with those resources. But I think that it would continue to have maybe not the developer kind of resources, but finding a home, finding shelter, cooling centers, those types of resources.
Thanks.
Well, let's just say your staff report sent me to the website because I'd been on it, you know, when it first went up, but the page about, you know, staying in your home, I thought there were a lot of great resources there, and there's definitely been some stuff added since the first iteration, and I'd love to see a way to get that out there more. And I'm wondering, I mean, short of a housing fair that's with developers is a big thing, but we have our farmers market, you know, or our First Friday events, and having, you know, Kelly's team has weaned us away from having a lot of paper at the at the farmers market booth, which has generally been a good thing, but I do think maybe having a special week where you have all this stuff, all these flyers and somebody to answer questions at the farmers market would be a great thing.
And I also wonder about a really small takeaway, you know, like a business card sized, here's the link to the website, because I think it's great to have paper resources for people, absolutely. It's also true that a lot of people who don't have a computer at home or ready access to the internet can go to the library. So just something that will, I don't know, trying to think of what tools will be most useful to people who don't have a lot of money, don't have a lot of time, and are really needing resources.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So I wonder too, along with that, if any of these types of resources are listed in the Street Roots booklet.
A number
that we
of
could
them
make
are.
sure there are more of those available throughout the community now that they've added Clackamas County to that booklet. I mean, I have one at home that I've referred to several times when I'm talking to other people, so I realize how beneficial it is and how comprehensive. It doesn't have everything, I've found that out, but, you know, but it's certainly got more than it has in the past, so it's a great tool to use. Yeah.
And there were some of those downstairs in the lobby
Yeah.
for a long time.
We
Yeah.
have some at our office.
Yeah, so if we could just make sure we keep that supply going, and those are something we could hand out at First Friday and or at Farmers Market.
They were in the farmers market booth last time I did it, but
Yeah.
not very many of them.
Yeah,
There were still
they're
a few.
really, I think they're a really good resource book. Yeah,
Okay.
and they're small, so easy
Yeah,
to
they're
carry them
pocketable,
around.
throw in your
Yeah.
purse kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
along those same route, discussion is the website. So as you guys know, it was launched in October 2018, and it is set up to align with the three goals of the MHAS: staying in your home, finding a home, building a home. So staff does continue to add resource to it. I'm glad that that's something that you notice as we learn about them. So far it's been moderately successful, but it seems most people come to the landing page to learn about housing affordability in general. And then the two most used resources are the finding a home and staying in your home sections. So staff may take some time to think about how we could reorganize this to provide a better, more user-friendly and easy to navigate page for housing affordability, easier to find exactly what you're looking for. So that's also on our to-do next list for marketing and promoting. Okay.
It'd be interesting to see if someone's using it, what they're not finding, what they need, but they can't find or didn't find, or, you know, whatever.
Is there a comment space?
Yeah,
There's not a comment space.
That might be a good,
right, yeah, yeah.
and even a question. Is there something you're looking for that you didn't find?
Right, yeah.
Well, and I think
Open-ended question, yeah.
we could have it, you know, use some social media to promote that's there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know a young woman right now who, in fact, I think most of us know her, who's looking for an affordable 2 or 3 bedroom place in the $1,200 to $1,400 a month bracket, and having a tough time. So what resources does she have? Where can she go? What is she looking for that she can't find? And how might our system be able to help? I guess that's where my mind goes, is helping those that are, you know, in that type of position.
And that come with a specific question that they're looking for the answer to.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, just a little recap. of what we're doing next, if it wasn't clear already. Again, the CET, the program and criteria recommendations that will come back to you in the next 6 months. The Sparrow property, we're working on grants, and then we'll come back to you for engagement to develop strategies and goals there. The comprehensive plan is probably the big one we'll be working on for a while, housing policy implementation, which includes those code amendments in 2020. Resource guide, marketing of housing resources, including both a possible housing resource fair in 2020 and website updates to make it more user-friendly, as we just discussed. And then the other category, we are continuing to coordinate with Clackamas County. We are still engaged in their housing and homelessness task force and monitoring what they're doing with their bond spending and things like that. So with that, I'll leave it open-ended. Part of my staff report also included all of the 17 short-term goals with a little bit about where we are and what we've done so far. So if you have questions there too, feel free to ask.
Have you guys started any conversations with Metro about the lot across the street and whether or not they might engage some of either the bond money or some of their TOD money to cause there to be more affordable housing there than might otherwise?
I'll take this one.
Yeah, I'll let you.
Yeah, so we haven't revisited the goals specifically because if you recall, you guys set goals back in March of last year for 20% of those units to be affordable. Since my transition into this new position, that's one of the projects that's been a little bit more delayed. But part of that discussion with Metro, since that bond measure was passed after we adopted goals, is kind of revisiting that before we issue an RFQ. So I suspect we will have an additional conversation with them. I think there's some appetite for that, but it's a question that still needs to be answered.
Okay. Thank you. Ready?
Okay.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Just in time, gentlemen. Well done. So next up, we have the Emergency Management Program, an update with our chief, Luke Straight, and the emergency manager, Steve. And I'm not going to even try
Okay.
until I hear you say it,
Yeah.
because I'll butcher it for sure.
It's Steve Hoffeditz.
Okay, it's just like
It's
it looks.
just like it.
I knew if I did it one way or the other, I'd get it wrong.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I know this is the first time that Steve has been in front of you folks. He has been on staff with us since about April. And as you know, this position in this format is kind of new to the city. So he was charged with kind of formalizing our emergency management program and kind of starting from scratch with a position that previously other staff members had done kind of as an ancillary duty over the years. Steve previously was with Clackamas Fire. He'd been in the fire service for about 25 years and retired there a year or so ago as a lieutenant, and also was their PIO for several years there toward the end. So we're super lucky to have him on board. He's really, really familiar with, he actually started here as a Milwaukie firefighter back in the 90s. And he's been in this area ever since. So we're lucky to have him. He's really well connected in the public safety community all around us. And he's here today, obviously, to talk about our emergency management program and kind of give you an idea of some of the things that he's working on.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me today. As we kind of had in the analysis there, gave you just a brief overlay of kind of what we've been doing, what I've been doing in the office, and just to cover some of it, some of the priorities that we've been focusing on since I've came over here has been the COOP plan, which is your continuity of operations plan. There's also the natural hazards mitigation plan, the EOC center, getting that up and running, make sure it's ready to go, and to just kind of get into the network and get more involved in the community and also just in the surrounding county and cities around us. I was in the PIO world a little bit in the fire service my last 3 years, and as a public information officer, we as a group regionally, we're pretty strong, and I've noticed the same thing as here in the county and the cities around you. Getting together with everybody has made it really easy for me to get on board, and I can see where everybody's heading and to help the city out. Just to give you a little bit of an update of the COOP plan, which is a continuity of operations, technically that kind of was started back federal government-wise during 9/11, the tsunami in Japan, Katrina, all that was kind of like the federal government. They were saying, you know, we want a plan. We want to keep you guys up to date. We want to keep everything running during catastrophes or disasters. And that's kind of what the plan here in the city is. It's also set up for, you know, just if you have an HVAC system go down here in City Hall, or if you happen to have something seismic hit this, or you're down, City Hall's down for a week, a month or something, you know, we got to be able to move it and put the people somewhere else and still get the job done and work for the citizens. So that's kind of what I've been working on, just get that all updated. There's some different things like team contacts, order succession, delegation, just things to get the cities keep up and running. You know, if we have to move from this building to something else, where would we go? The library, of course, is under construction, and back when I took this plan over, the pond house was part of it. That's probably no longer going to be in play, so kind of excited to see what's going to happen over here at the library. So if something did happen, we could go to that plan, and we could pull it up, and we have people in place, and they have jobs they got to do, and we'll just continue moving on and keep the city moving. We have a natural hazard mitigation plan, and this just allows the city to deal with, to strategize and figure out what they're going to do in case of windstorms, floods, fires, anything like that, any type of a natural disaster. And again, the county has a big plan that we're just part of. So Clackamas County has the big natural hazard plan, and then the city's kind of involved in that. And they involve us in a lot of things. One of the things they worked on recently was debris removal, because they know how crazy it's going to be with all the trees down. And, you know, cities like us and smaller areas don't have the ability to clear out as much as, you know, we need to get things moving, get emergency services going, and keep the city moving. And they got a plan in place already over there, and they've had 4 or 5 contractors. They take them out to bid, and they're going to have a list. So if something happens, they play off a list, and we're in the game with them on that. So we don't have to just rely on our public works and things around here. The county's got us set up to where we can get on board with them and help us out. That was started in about 2007, and every 5 years we have to update that. And so that's kind of where we are now. Kind of when I started, it was in the update process. And I noticed when I got here, and it goes out to the public. You probably saw it on the website. Part of it is it's through FEMA. It has to go on the website, and the public has to have comment. And we've had different employees, counselors, people like that have commented, and we've been able to upgrade it and update it. So we're hoping to get it as updated as possible to get it moving through our system.
It really was kind of, parts of it were great, but parts of it were like, did anyone proofread this document? That it's been out there since 2007 with Alder Creek as being in Milwaukie and no mention of Rao Middle School. That's a glaring omission right there. And that happens twice in the document, and it's sort of like, wow. And then just there were things in there I was just like, somebody,
Yeah, and we definitely appreciate that. And then we do have an outside contractor that does it, and that's through the county also. So we're on board with them, so we use the same contractor. And so what's great is we find stuff like that, we send that off to them, and they make the update right away for us. So it's been, like I said, definitely appreciate, and I've had a few other people reach out.
And you said that document, I mean, you said it's part of a bigger county document, but it has to do with our eligibility for federal grants and stuff?
Yeah, it allows us to be on board for some federal funding through FEMA, so if we have to go out and look for help and get money in the long run, as long as we have this plan in place that allows us to go out for that.
Okay.
So that's pretty important. We've been working on the Emergency Operations Center. It's been good. New employees, we've been hiring new employees, and their manager's been reaching out to find out what kind of training is out there for them, because if we get an Emergency Operations Center activation, people that are in the key roles have certain training that they need to obtain. It's all online, it's all free, and so the city's really been good about asking for that training, even new employees. We have satellite phones, maps, computers. So IT has gone through and has looked at updates and looked at our phone systems and figuring out how and what we can use. I think down the road, I'm going to look at, with the budget that we have, to doing a little bit of upgrades on the computers, which is very low cost. IT was saying, I mean, we're looking at maybe $40 a computer, or if that. So there's some things we can do to upgrade and get us up to date, which will be great. And then just working with Clackamas County disaster team to help us with drills and training down the road. They've been great. They've been a really good resource on everything that I've reached out to them with, and they're willing to do that and to help out with any way they can. We had a National Preparedness Month, which is in September, and the message this year was prepared, not scared, and ready for disasters. So I know I said there was an attachment attached to this, and I didn't make it, but there's a pilot right outside, and it's in there. I saw it this morning. I saw it today when I checked it out. So just a little bit of information on preparedness. That happens every year in September, so hopefully every year the plan is to follow kind of what the motto is and put something out there. I've checked in with CERT team, of course, which is our team that is also the community emergency response team through Clackamas Fire District Number 1. They're kind of running the show on that. But I've been involved and been in contact with a couple of their leaders, and still kind of know what's going on, and it's been good. Sounds like they're really active. They got a good team together. The CERT Summit this year is in Boring, and I guess from what I understand, the Milwaukie team, most of the instructors at that summit are from the team here. So it sounds like the Milwaukie team is pretty much one of the better teams out there right now. They did fill me in on the Beacon Box program they have, where they have the boxes throughout the community, and it sounds like they are continuing to update those and trill with those, and we actually bought them some stuff to fill those up this summer, so we got the inventory up.
Is there still, I remember last year there was quite a delay if you were interested in getting CERT training. You had to, it seemed like you had to wait almost a year to get a space. Do you know if that continues to be the case? Because that's a real deterrent for getting more people, and I know we've got some neighborhoods that really don't have very many CERT members. It's a very uneven distribution throughout the community.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long it takes. I'm sure we can look into that, especially with the fire district being part of the team that's over there. I think we can push them a little bit if that's the hang up.
Yeah, I mean, my husband went through the training last year, but he was one of the lucky ones who got in. And, and there were a lot of people that, when I was at neighborhood association meetings, I would hear, I couldn't get into the training. And then in my husband's training session, a number of people never showed up. So there were these empty seats when there's this high demand, and there was some sort of disconnect there that it seems like could be better addressed.
I am familiar with that as a problem. I think typically their complaint would be they don't get notified if someone's going to back out.
Right.
So they get some positive feedback leading up to the training, and then somebody just does not show up, and there's no prior communication, so they don't get that opportunity to backfill that seat.
Right.
And I know they've talked about ways to reduce the frequency of that happening. And they're trying to work on that, but it is a problem with, obviously, with a volunteer position. Something can sound like a good idea on the front end, and when it comes time to show up and put in the work, sometimes people are busy.
Yeah.
So I think that will continue to be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and I know that's par for the course for volunteer anything, that you have a fairly high attrition rate. It does seem like it's one of those places where a little bit of staff time in the week prior to the first class could go a long way toward both winnowing out the people who aren't going to be able to make it and filling some of those empty seats if we could. But yeah, anyway, I'm glad the conversation is happening.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. We also, one thing we did, I got kind of notified probably my first month or two here about possibly being a push partner here at the city. And what that allowed us to do, it's actually through the Clackamas County Public Health. And what they do is it's all funded by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, and what it allowed us to do is we will be a point of dispensing for our employees, especially with us being having the police department here and a city hall, and these things have to get done for the city to continue to move on. And what we can do is they will support with medical countermeasures and distribution of medications. So really what this is if we have an anthrax attack or something like that, we as a city and all the employees and I shouldn't say the city, the employees, the families all will have the ability to get medication and vaccines if needed. It was free. Like I said, we just signed up, and so we're on board for that. So if anything ever comes down to where we have a disaster such as that, there will be something we can go pick up, bring the medication here. If it's an immunization, it's a shot, they supply the nurse, or the person that would do it. So it was a nice little thing to get set up, and it was all, like I said, it was free for us to do. We've worked to change over the Code Red. The old Code Red is now the Clackamas County Public Alerts. It's pretty much exactly the same it was. It's through LOCOM, CCOM, and Clackamas County Disaster Management. So any of them can set alerts out to people that sign up. We're trying to push it towards our website. We've also had it in our neighborhood association meetings. We tried to push it out through there. The Public Safety Advisory Committee also, we put information out through them on how to get people signed up on it. It's easy as get on the computer and click onto it.
Yeah, Shannon, is that her name? A couple people came to the farmer's market and handed out cards and stuff last year, I guess it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have we used that system lately? Like, did we use it when there were a couple of incidents this year at Precision Cast Parts, for example? One was a chemical and one was a inside intruder kind of
I don't
thing?
believe we have used it for anything yet, other than maybe some internal messaging just to become a little bit more familiar with it.
Yeah, okay.
So no, we haven't.
Used it.
We'll continue to obviously watch for opportunities for that, to take advantage of the system when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think back in Precision Cast years ago when they had the Cloud Go, they used it, and it was a Portland, Milwaukie thing at that time. So they are two different jurisdictions. And I want to say this side was fine and that side didn't do too well, but I'm not exactly sure on that. But then the spill they had too recently that you're probably talking about, it seemed like they contained it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So there wasn't that problem. But we actually in the police department, Kayla, she has the ability, I have the ability to get on the computer and send that stuff out. It's a pretty cool program, and we, like Precision, we can map it. If Incident Command says I need everybody in a quarter mile, half mile to evacuate, we get in there, we push the address, and it builds us that quarter mile, and it calls. And it will call, text, email, everything. And like Luke said, we've actually put our employees on that same system. So if there's an event that we're not supposed to come to work or something's going on, we can get a hold of everybody with just one push of the button on the computer. Well, probably a couple of pushes, but
So what are the types of things you would use that for? I mean, I'm thinking of, like, if there were a bad accident that blocked McLaughlin, would you use that? If there were a bad accident where King Road wasn't accessible, would you use that? I mean, I get the other things, too, like there's some communicable disease, or there's...
Hazardous.
What if there's like some snow disaster day or something? Is that a way to get a notice about, like
yeah. And it's,
danger, don't go out there, maybe your electric lines are down or something? I'm just curious how fully that might be utilized.
yeah, and like it definitely, a large, extremely large fire where it's going to take a couple days and the smoke is bad in the air,
Yeah.
things like that to notify the people. Yes, snowstorms, things like that, we're going to be down for a while, a big delay in getting the roads cleared because it's going to take a while. That stuff could go out. And it would be mainly a good thing about that. And the reason we'd send that out for stuff like that would be, of course, for people that need to get out for either medication or health issues and things like that.
Yeah.
That we can get the information out to them, and they can hopefully make arrangements.
Well, and then can they then get in touch with you to say, hey, I need XYZ medication and it's at Kaiser and I can't get up there or something? Is there that kind of opportunity?
I mean, the system is one-way communication, but we
Gotcha.
could include in the messaging any information that
On
we
how to
wanted
make-
to. So we craft the message. That's kind of some of the challenge with, say, these situations that develop with no notice, and it's some kind of a small scale or medium scale disaster like Precision, for example.
Yeah.
It can be challenging in the first 15, 20 minutes to have someone decide what that message is and get it out. And we can use our dispatch centers for that. But if a situation is contained within the first 20 minutes, quite likely we won't have taken the time to dedicate someone to deciding what that message is and getting it pushed out. It will be for something either bigger or longer scale than that. I think there's a fair amount of flexibility in what we can use it for as far as messaging. And it's just a matter of taking advantage of the system and using it to benefit us in ways that our community, the larger community agrees is appropriate. So I think there's some flexibility.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
I mean, on your example about somebody who needs to get to their meds, I know that, like, the hospitals have volunteer corps of people who have SUVs and four-wheel drive who volunteer to get people to and from work. And I don't know if there's any service like that that helps people get medication pickup if they need it. I mean, it'd be good to know.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people, the community at large, to know that there are those, I mean, we were just talking about resources a while ago, how you find things out that, like, oh my God, I need XYZ. How do I find that out? Where do I go? And we were referencing to the Street Routes booklet, but the Street Routes booklet wouldn't have those kind of things. So just knowing that there are other ways for people to be able to feel a little bit more assured that they could continue their quality of life in that moment of everything else that's going on around. I think it's important. Yeah.
I had a question. You said something earlier regarding maps, and I was wondering if a lot of that's interfaced with the internet, right? GIS systems.
Mm-hmm.
So in the event of a big disaster where we lose internet access, do we have an internal GIS system so that when we're trying to coordinate people doing whatever it is, we have to clearing roads, searching buildings, doing whatever, do we have resources that won't be affected by the internet?
We have, just real quick, we've had some, our GIS department has updated a lot of our maps for us and hard copied them too for us, for the EOC. So that's been good. So we do have some in the Emergency Operations Center for that.
And it's, I mean, when Steve and I first started out in this business, we we weren't nearly as technology-based, so they were dispatching calls that weren't linked to maps, and you did everything without the kind of technology we use today. So there are times when they'll even do drills where you're doing something without the assistance of all the technology we have today. So yeah, we would be able to function. It would be a little bit of a challenge, but we would work through it.
We also have backup drives for things like our important critical documents. And I believe that Brandon pulled those together last year. We had the joy of going through the windstorm about a year and a half ago, so we actually had a chance to test some of these pieces out. So we had paper copies with us for a variety of the services that we needed. I also, and this is probably a great idea for all of you, I carry a laminated card in my purse that has all the phone numbers for everybody that I need to reach, so that if your cell phone goes down, you can find us without having to get to us. So there are some things that we're happy to talk to you about if you would like some ideas on how you can do your job in this situation. We're happy to help there too.
That's a good idea.
Can you just email that to us? Your card?
Yeah, Christina actually is the person who's created mine, and she's been really lovely. So if you would like a set of those cards, that's easy too. It's the critical people, like getting to Luke or to me or to Steve and in a crisis situation. And then also just talking through where we will be.
Well, like even me, with all my kids living out of state, if something happened and, I needed to try to get in touch with, I have no idea what their phone numbers are.
Yeah.
It's like dial G for Gary.
Yeah, people have gotten very dependent on those phone call lists, so making sure that you have those pulled off of your phone.
Yeah.
Your kids' schools,
hadn't even thought
local
about
hospitals, all those things are always a good idea.
Yeah. And the, Peter talked to us, I guess it was in our budget committee meeting, about the plans for a new software control system for the
It's the SCADA system.
SCADA system, and that you guys were consulting with him on that. So is that also, does it function if there's no internet?
So the SCADA system is our pumps and our backup systems for all of our water and waste systems. There is we have redundancy on the servers, so that's the first piece. So if our own servers go down, those are kept outside of the region as well so that we can get to them. If there's a problem, it helps with the upload faster. And I don't know how we manage that system when everything's down. Peter would have to be here to answer that question tonight.
I'm sure it all goes back to manual.
Yeah.
I mean, that's again, like you said, that's how we used to run it all the time, and there's so many overrides on anything anymore.
Right.
When you drive around, you listen, it's real loud when you're driving past those systems. So our alarms, when they go off, you can hear them from the street.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually, bringing up some of the things like how to contact your people and family, that was one of the things that was on the preparedness month, was to make a plan. And so there's sites out there we use like ReadyGov and things like that kind of will walk you through that and teach people. And that's when, kind of in closing too, that's a little bit, when I talked about being a regional emergency management partner, I know that was on the part of the deal, and I didn't put anything underneath it. It was there for, I think, me to click something, and kind of what I put that in there for was that was my part of being more regionally sound with the groups around us and the people, get more involved and get more up to speed with everybody around us. That and my other thing was to go forward from here too, is not only continue this, but the educational piece. You were talking about the, how are we going to reach out to people and what are we going to reach out to them about? We had a little bit of the heat this year. Down the road, we're probably going to be more into letting people know where they can go, and then during the winter, the cooling centers and how to deal with drought and just little informational things, the 3-day kits, the 72-hour kits, all that stuff. That's all kind of in the works right now, and I think that's where we kind of want to go from here. The county, the fire district has a lot of that that they do, but we're going to focus more on the city here. That's my plan.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think another thing we could be thinking about is aftermaths and what things, 2 months after the earthquake, going, dang, if we would have just hardened a well or done whatever this thing, we would be in such better shape. And it would be really, I think, a good exercise for the whole city to sort of consider that, so that we can maybe do some of those things that would get our water system up and running faster, or the sewer system up and running faster, or have at least places where there's electricity available for people, with solar and batteries or whatever, so that we are more prepared in the event of something catastrophic, because it's going to be a mess. And the more we can,
Oxygen.
prefetch that a little bit, we're going to be a whole lot better off.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I agree.
Yeah, and one of the things that we can do is try to reach out to surrounding communities or even outside of this immediate area and solicit those areas that have worked through some kind of a major disaster, and ask them what their big takeaway or what their learn from was from those, and see what we can do in advance, rather than having to learn it the hard way after the fact.
Yeah, we 2 or 3 years ago, probably more than that, when I was on the Water Providers Consortium, we had a really good presentation from the guy who, the governor had, an engineer whose job it was to look at, okay, water systems, sewer systems after the Cascadia event, what's that going to look like? And one was predicted to be, there would be no system functioning for a year, and the other one was a year and a half. And one of the big takeaways that he then went out and sort of explored and went to Japan and met with those people was just having hard connections on pipes. Because right now our pipes, or a lot of systems, the pipes are just sort of pushed together. There's no actual thing that connects pipes. And if you just do that, if you just add a hard connector, then you have isolated breaks that you can fix easily, rather than every single pipe in a whole string being disconnected because the ground did this, right? And just move them all apart. And that was a huge thing for them. So I think we are doing that now as we put in new pipes. But it's things like that, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's nominal given, the advantage that would give us afterwards. But that's the kind of thing that I'm wondering on all of our systems, and even systems we don't control like electricity, what are things we could be doing to be prepped?
For sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely kind of a big job for a part-time position, in effect, especially the first 6 to 12 months. So he does have a lot going on, and he's staying very busy with it. But I think we're making real steady progress.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's his idea of retirement, huh?
Yeah.
Relaxing, doesn't it?
It's, yeah.
Spreadsheets are relaxing for some people.
Oh, yeah. They're better than fishing. Oh, no,
Totally.
it's not.
So I wanted to ask about the EOC. So both, with the community continuity of operations idea, we are, we're kind of been touting that we're consolidating some of our functions, but it's actually sometimes good to have functions in different buildings, because some buildings will fare better than others, and depending on what the problem is. And so, the EOC in particular, as I understand it, has to have certain seismic, has to meet certain seismic requirements for the state. And I just wondered, does ours? This was a conversation council had a couple years ago, maybe 3, because there was some legislation at the time that said, the state was, I don't know, elevated. I don't know if they were elevating the requirements, but they were, or just enforcing requirements, but they were setting like a firm deadline of 2022 or something. And so where do we stand on all that?
Well, I looked into that today, and I reached out to the county we looked into the Oregon Office of Emergency Management, and there was no mandates for the state, is what they were saying. There is the ability, there's a seismic rehabilitation grant that you can go for. And it's a program, it's made up for schools and public safety buildings is kind of what it's for. And I was looking at some like Gaston, Estacada got some different, there was a few different departments, fire departments that got it. Then a lot of schools and a lot of the smaller schools around. But those abilities are out there, and it's through Business of Oregon. And so I did relay it on that message on to Damien to kind of see, how does the public safety building stand?
And we don't know? We don't know what its seismic,
I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, and Damien's been looking at this question, so we just need to be
Yeah.
in touch with him.
I think-
Sam and Damien both were the people who had sort of spearheaded this in the
Who
past.
also, yeah.
Damien's out.
Yeah.
So we'll be in touch as soon as we get over.
okay.
But I think we do have it sounds like we have an avenue just in case if it's something we want to look into, of possibly doing something.
Right, right.
It's good.
Great.
I remember when that building was built, the public safety building, I want to say they was supposed to be earthquake-proof at that time.
And it would have, the standards have just gone up.
It does, yeah.
But it is one of our newer buildings, and out of all of them, it was the one that was designed to be an EOC, which is a good step.
Is it 1999? What year?
I think it was
94? So
94.
it's 25 years old.
The other piece, though, to remember is that in a real emergency, a legitimate earthquake where everything goes down, we're probably going to be hanging out at the county, or we'll have representation out at the county. This is for smaller incidences, is my guess. We won't be the center of the world when there's a big thing.
Right.
So the importance for this, for us, will be when things are probably still standing. Or if there was a rail issue.
Yeah.
So places like that where it's a spot specific, more than the entire community has lost everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair?
True, yeah. That's all I got.
I don't mean to dilute or give you even more work, but I know that we had extensive conversations about mitigation in the work around the Climate Action Plan. And so I just wanted to sort of flag that there's a bunch of stuff in the Climate Action Plan, and I'm hoping that as you're going through and thinking about this, a lot of the work you're doing is going to naturally address that, but just to make sure that it's on your radar as another place to look for some goals and some guidance that we've set forth as a community.
Yeah, and I have, I met with them early when I first got here.
Great.
And that's where we were headed. That was the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that can go into some of our plans that are out there too. Definitely can see that.
Great.
I have a question about it was HB, was it 2209? The contingency plan requirements for railroads that operate oil trains in hazardous areas.
Vulcan,
Yeah. And I think we know just from sort of train watching that we have one that runs right along 99E. Just wondering
224.
and 99E.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where that line starts. It went from Brooklyn all the way through.
Right.
And I'm wondering about, just in terms of like whether you have heard from the railroad that operates that line in terms of sort of when they're supposed to be in coordinating with all local agencies and preparing these plans, these response plans. And I'm just kind of wondering if you've heard from them yet.
I have not. I know when I was still at the fire district, they were doing plans with them. They went to school. They met with them. They were putting on drills. So I know the fire district is well aware of that product and what it can do and how they're going to respond to it. So I definitely know that part's taken care of.
Okay.
Do they have a good foam source?
Do they? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can. The airport has a lot of. We've used a lot of that before too.
That was
Chief, was telling us at one of our recent meetings that it doesn't hold very well. So for local agencies to hold that foam, it doesn't make much sense for it to be dispersed in advance because it doesn't have a very long shelf life, that it actually expires faster than most agencies would ever use it. And so that was sort of the problem with distributing it widely. And
Interesting.
I mean, the state, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, put some around the state. There was, I mean, it was just like PDX was the only place in the state or something. But now there's like 8 places around the state with it, I think. But yeah, I think for metro area, it's still PDX. Yeah. Or at least east side, it's still PDX. Yeah.
and I can't find it. I don't know what the deadline is for actually.
Well, they have to submit a report to DEQ, right? But yeah, I don't know how much local coordination
It says that they're supposed to coordinate in developing these plans, and so it just occurred to me that, oh, well, you know, we would be the local agency that they would coordinate with. And
Right.
But it probably is Clackamas Fire.
Yeah, they probably would.
Well, and our police, it wouldn't just be,
Is it? I mean,
I have not had any communication with them myself. We can certainly reach out to Clackamas Fire and discuss that particular issue a little bit more.
Chief.
And see what all is happening there.
we probably have another meeting here at some point soon, so I don't think it's on the calendar yet, but
I'll send them an email.
yeah, that'll just be something we can talk to them about that too.
I mean, I would think that, I mean, I would think any police department should be consulted, but especially in our case, the police department sits right on the rail line, and we have a city that's divided by that rail line. So, yeah, it seems like even in our case, more than normal, they should be consulting with the police.
And I don't know that it says only fire districts. I mean, it says local agencies, so I wouldn't think that it.
It gets here quick, I know, and I was on the fire that we had used it on 212 because they had a machine that had oil in it and would not go out. And they made the call, and it's the actual fire guys that are on duty 24/7 that bring it out here. So it's not like you have to wait for a warehouse to open up or anything like that. If we need it, they'll be shipping it over.
And it's delivered by professionals who know what to do with it.
Yeah, it's true.
Wasn't there a cleanup incident, though, out on, is that the one you're talking about? There was a truck that needed special foam to be put out of, I think it was.
In the Clackamas Industrial, the one that went into the wetlands and stuff?
Hosed it down and it went into the.
That was they hit the field, natural gas line, and it caught it on fire. Yeah, and all the foam, because the area is such a big asphalt area, it all goes into the catch basins and then takes off into the drinking water. But they had, Clackamas Water had they have a lot of catch areas for that water, and they just completed all that in that area. So they got it controlled very quickly.
Lucky.
And it was perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I think one thing I do think is we're in good hands, everything around us, between the county, like I said, the fire district. I think the city's really in good hands. And of course, the police department. Of course, my boss. Yeah.
I was wondering how this was working out. Please.
Well, when I started here in '95, Steve was a Milwaukie firefighter then, and back then there was a friendly rivalry between Milwaukie Fire and Clack Fire. He managed to work his way through that. So we have known each other for a long time, and it helps that he's really well connected with, obviously, Chief Charlton started out here, so those are good connections to have. You can't really put a price tag on those.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you guys.
very much.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good
I will
seeing
be
you.
in touch with you guys because I need your help on a couple things coming up. So
All right.
Perfect.
I got your number.
Mayor, if you'd like, we can move the dinner, the CCA dinner from later in the meeting up into this discussion. It's
I was
just
thinking about that, wondering if we would do that.
Sure.
shorten your meeting later
Seems
tonight.
like one that we could
That would be great.
discuss now.
Knock it out.
Sure, I'll just go ahead and start. It's a pretty quick update and then a quick question. The 2020 calendar for CCA is pretty much set, and we are confirmed for June of 2020, which is the plan we went into this year, and so that's that. The question for council at the moment is 2021. It's been noted to me from our neighbors that we've hosted 5 years consistently, and most cities take at least a year off, maybe do 2 and then a year off, just as a rotation. And no one's telling us to stop, but the question's asked, do we want to take a break? Or if we want to do something in 21, what's our pleasure in terms of what we'd like to ask for? So those are the 2020, we're locked in for June, unless people want to change us, you guys want to change that. 21, what are thoughts?
Well, also, wasn't June, there's a conflict, and I can't think offhand, is it the Oregon Mayors Association?
Chamber Awards.
That was what it was this year, it was the chamber dinner.
Same thing.
It would. So when assuming we're going to do June 2020, we'll try to be better at looking at the regional calendar for that and see if we can do a different night at the end of June.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the official folks from the other cities and the Board of County Commissioners weren't able to be at ours. Yeah.
So maybe we look at that fourth Tuesday or something. We can look at that calendar.
But we will avoid that.
Yes. Yeah.
So are there other cities that are chomping at the bit for 2021? I'm trying to
I just
feel
think
out what this pattern is from, and
it's generally you're supposed to rotate. So if you were October, because it's a monthly thing, but it's only 7 months of the year, so it goes from June to October and then to January. But then you're supposed to slowly kind of work your way around. We've been January, we hopped to the bottom. I don't know that anyone's like competing with us, or I don't have any sense that we'd be locked out if we don't want to be in 21. But it was just observed to me that we've done it 5 straight years.
Yeah, and there are some cities right now that haven't done it, at least in the few years that I've been involved, and part of that's the rotation, and part of it's that some of us have set months that we want to do it. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard of other cities saying, but they might not necessarily say that. They might just be waiting for an opportunity.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And there's some hard rule about July and August, just...
Well, I think we run into kind of the discussions we had earlier about that's vacation time, and people are gone, and your numbers are going to be down. And
are there cities that don't meet in July and August? I'm sure we talked about this last time we talked about this, but I'm just not remembering.
Takes
and
off August.
all of the county committees seem to not meet in July and August.
Yeah, Board of County Commissioners is off in July or August, one of the two.
And September is ruled out because of the LOC.
Are you
and
hinting
conference.
that we should take off a month in July?
No, I'm actually was sort of I was just thinking the opposite. If there are cities who haven't been able to participate because there are set dates for certain cities, then if you open the calendar up, then that's 2 more opportunities.
Right.
12 cities. I think just observing, one city hadn't participated in a while, but then it has recently hosted again, and they've been more active. It sort of ebbs and flows. I think most cities have gotten a chance in the last few years. I don't think we're pushing anybody out. I feel like us in Oregon City and LO are probably some of the more consistent, near annual, if not annual.
Like Malala, has Malala ever hosted?
They just did
They
one.
have.
Yeah. Pardon?
We went.
Oh, you went to Malala. Oh, okay.
The 2 years before, 2 or 3 cycles before this, they've kind of bowed out. So it ebbs and flows. I don't think we're pushing anybody out by wanting an annual year, and we're happy to continue to do it annually if that's what council directs. It's just.
I think if there was some specific issue with us, I don't see any reason to withdraw if.
Not unless somebody
is
chopping it.
Right. Yeah. Right. If someone were saying, we really need you to take a break because we can't get on, then that would be something,
Well, I guess the other thing to think about, too, is what do we want? I mean, we know right now kind of what we want to showcase in 20, but...
What do we have to say in 21?
Right. What do we have to say in 21 that we haven't already said?
In some of the cities, the outlay for the extra cost that you put into this is cash, that they're really not interested in spending. So I also think that there's some surprise that we want to this much. So they were more giving us an out. I don't want you guys to think.
So remind us, what do we spend beyond, like 20,000?
2,000.
2,000.
We're talking about
Oh, yeah,
almost 3.
gosh, I
No,
would.
this is small.
So I was
This
saying,
year was
wow.
about 3.
If it were 20,000, I would vote
dinner,
not
'cause-
to do it.
They're having lobster.
I am
now.
not good, yeah.
2,500 last time.
Yeah.
Very roughly, it's like
We're
3
talking
to
about what we
3,000.
spend
That was-
more than what we take in, yeah.
And
And we bring, so if we spend 3, we make it up 12 to 1,500, so 15 to 2, depending on what we do. This year was a little more expensive because we lost our venue and we changed a couple, but, yeah.
and how much staff time does it take to
Well,
pull this off?
it can take, I
If we
have
don't do a
weekly numbers,
tour
but-
of downtown, a walking tour of downtown, how much staff time does it take? Right?
I had fun
We'll just sit in the library next
in the
time.
pouring rain.
It's nothing staff doesn't honestly enjoy doing. It's a fun event to
Yeah.
put on to showcase our city and so
I think we might want to do a tour again next year, you know?
I was trying to get a range.
Have the library, but
Yeah,
Well, we have a
are we
venue
doing
as the
lib-
library,
Yeah, with
yeah.
the library. And in terms of, what will we have in 2021 then? Well, if we're doing it at the library next year, then we have to push Harmony Campus into 21.
oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
So would that in fact impact what month you'd ask for in 21?
because
Well,
it
it could
wouldn't matter.
be, it doesn't have to be
We're going to do a
June.
walking tour.
Right, we could move away from June.
It might be interesting at that point to showcase the SAFE program,
The what?
Safe.
SAFE program, because we will have had, whatever, 3 years of construction. and-
Construction.
Well, and we'll have,
Do that.
we'll be on the eve of Linwood and hopefully on the eve of Monroe,
Actually, Linwood
2021.
would be probably under construction.
Kelly's like
We could
shooting daggers.
Nothing we say here in the conversation is holding us accountable.
But if we met at Harmony in 21, we could showcase SAFE with PowerPoint and videos.
Sure.
So it
Yeah, that
wouldn't
would
be
be
a
a hard,
tour.
yeah, that would be a very
You
difficult
couldn't do a
tour
walk.
Oh, it couldn't,
to make.
yeah. you
Yeah.
Spread out, well,
Have a couple of little kids talking about how cool it is to, be able to get to school.
If
One of our
21
planning commissioners
and we
talked
go to CCC, would the fall be just thinking fall, so maybe ask for
well,
October?
and it would actually be fun to put maybe some videos together in advance, with all the Safe Routes to School projects that were done and some of the kids who,
Benefited.
are benefiting and would be
families,
willing to, maybe help us with that presentation.
So like, should we ask for October of 21?
I mean, I think fall's better
Yeah.
for 21
Yeah,
if we're
I think
thinking
so,
about
too.
safe and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that gives that
You have more of it done.
season to be
Yeah.
done.
And it gets us out of that
I won't be here,
conflict
but
of
that's
chamber.
School and not on,
Yeah.
yeah.
Works.
Cool, so June 20, and we did kind of bill this year that we were going to repeat, not that you're locked in, but we did kind of bill it as state phase 2 or phase 1 and come back next year, and phase 2, you'll see what we've done from the library. And then 21 will ask for October with at CCC, and then Safe Projects focus.
Sounds good.
Sounds
That work?
great.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, is that it?
For that one, yeah.
All right, well, we will adjourn the work session and be back here at 6 o'clock for the regular session.